Hello, and welcome to the DCIFF Film Chat Podcast. I'm Erin DeVos, and I'll be your host for this season. Join us for insightful interviews that explore the work of up-and-coming independent filmmakers from all over the world. If you're passionate about film and keen to learning about the creative process from the future cinema greats, this podcast is a must-listen for you. Our mission is to provide listeners with the engaging and informative conversations about successful and innovative films, including features, shorts, documentaries, animation, and web series from across the globe. The DCIFF Film Chat Podcast is a unique opportunity for independent filmmakers to have their voices heard in a way no other film festival can provide. You can listen to the DCIFF Film Chat Podcast on all podcast platforms or visit our website at DCIFF-indie.org/DCIFF-podcast. Thank you. Welcome, Andy and Yvonne, to the DCFF Film Chat Podcast. We are chatting about their film today, The Untranslatable Forest. They're the filmmakers of this film that was showcased at DCFF 2025. So again, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having us. It's great to be here.
Very excited. Thank you.
Of course, yeah. And Andy, I had the chance to meet you at the festival, so that was really exciting too. Yeah. And to start things off as well, do you guys mind introducing yourselves and sharing a little bit about your film?
Yeah, sure. I'll start, and then Ivan, you can go next. So I'm Andy Camou, the co-director for Untranslatable Forest. I'm primarily handled the 3D design and animation and all that good stuff, the whole 3D process part of the film, because it is a 3D animated film. And traditionally, I come from a motion design background. So that's what I do as a day job. I'm a freelance motion designer, both 2D and 3D. Yeah, this was like solely collaborative project between Ivan and I over the course 3 years during the pandemic. We worked on this, and we wanted to take on a larger animation project and storytelling project that really challenged the both of us. I wanted to challenge myself in 3D animation. Ivan wanted to design something more along the lines of a movie title sequence or something similar to that. And so that's how this project was started. And
that's how it started, and it took its own life. Yeah, I am Miguel. I am the co-director of the short film and producer. And I took care of the storyboard processing and later on the editing and the post-production of the awesome 3D animations that can be produced. In my case, I come from advertising where I worked for 6 years, and after that I moved also to 2D motion graphics. And my approach is kind of the creative side, and working on this allows me collaborating with Andy to do the kind of projects that by my own I wouldn't be able to do. Also, as we were working on this, as I was saying, the message that we were telling, we discovered that was so relevant that the short took its own direction. Originally, we wanted something to just showcase in our portfolio, and then we realized that we had something that the message was so relevant that we had to set it with more people than the algorithm allowed.
Awesome. Yeah, and you guys also mind sharing a little bit about the film?
Yeah, so it's a 3D animated short. It's very short. It's, I believe, maybe like 2.5 minutes of actual animation, at least of the story. And it started because we were looking for ideas and to kind of create abstract 3D animation film that's sort of shot or looks like it might be used for a title sequence. That was the very foundation of it. And Ivan had come across this list of untranslatable words or words unique to different languages that don't have, direct translations. Thought, well, let's maybe try and find a story for this that we can string these together using only these words and create a short story out of it. And so that was what started it. And we came across a lot of words relating to nature. And so that was a kind of a springboard for us. We kind of created a very loose story around nature using these translatable words.
Mhm.
And then to create the visual for it, I then came up with the fantastic idea of using an airport that is being taken over by nature. And so you have this juxtaposition and storytelling of a traditionally very ugly and urban thing that is being accented by a beautiful thing of nature. And that's how so we're weaving together a story of these untranslatable words and this airport and that is coexisting with nature. And it's really about the beauty of language and nature and how they're connected and the importance of both. So, Ivan, anything you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I think that you did yourself short because with those unrelatable words that we originally had, we could create any kind of stories. I was indeed the one who saw a path to can put it in a way that it would be about nature. And when we saw that, that was the way to move forward. Later on, we came across with the information that we put at the very end of the short, built upon creating the visuals, was the easy part, and then the amazing job of animating.
Thank you both for expanding on that because I've seen your film and I loved being able to have like the visual guidance, if you will, like kind of like a tour, but also kind of like the overview of what this airport would look like. Is there a specific reason as to why you chose a surreal airport setting? And I also noticed like the themes of nature that were intertwined. Like, was there a concept of like, between nature and the language and the translation within the film too?
Yeah, definitely. Sorry that I jumped into.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, go
Uh,
ahead, Ivan. So that's all you. That's your field for sure. So go ahead.
Definitely, all it was intertwined. At the end, the nature is disappearing, languages are disappearing. So those two parts are already intertwined by themselves. The, as we revealed at the beginning, a place where normally we hear languages are airports. And also normally we did this during pandemic. So two things that we could notice was nature growing up because we were in our houses or the cities were really reliving again with the whole nature and not being able to go to an airport. And then there were empty spaces. So putting those two concepts together during pandemic wasn't as difficult. Now looks kind of pain, but it at least in our minds was making a lot of sense. And it's the same. 2 months ago, we were really reading about liminal spaces and how liminal spaces like airports, subways, there is kind of media talking and reflecting, doing videos about it to reflect that subjective point that exists to other structures. So I think that the short also kind of taps into that idea that we have kind of a path that we are moving forward and we haven't reflected on it. What are the consequences of that? So a little bit.
Certainly, and yeah, because it made me think, like, on kinda like that climate change aspect and, yeah, even thinking more about how you mentioned that this was, created during the pandemic, so kind of, like, seeing these things that almost seem lost, but also, like, in ways, like, we take for granted, like nature and travel, and to be able to explore the different areas of the world and be able to translate it in our own way, so I thought the cinematic approach was really beautiful.
Yeah, and definitely you are talking about a lot of things that we were talking, and later on, well, where a lot of the topics are on the short, despite as we are saying, being a sort of 2 minutes and a half. Where the song that we did or Kronos Quartet allow us to use the composer Bryce Dessner in his speaker when he talks about the song. He wrote it when the Notre Dame band and then he wanted to reflect about structures that we were taking for granted, that we think that they are going to be always there, and suddenly they disappear, and that sense of loss. So, yeah, in everything what you were mentioning, you were tapping into that.
Mm. Yeah. No, that's such a good point because something that I, just had noticed was if there was any specific films or artists or movements that influenced the aesthetic choices.
Yeah, I mean, Ivan can start, and I'll respond on my side since he was the primary driver of the look and aesthetic of it. So
Mhm.
go ahead, Ivan.
I would say that several. There is that point that we were saying that originally this we were considering it like main titles. Now it's interesting because then there is credits inside the credits that we were doing. So the kind of narrative that normally main titles have of TV shows, like it could be Game of Thrones, or like it could be these kind of things that normally we don't consider it part of the narrative, but going together with the narrative was something that initially was in our head. Later on, at the moment of building up the images or the sort of the visuals, references that were coming to our minds were, and now don't remember any in 2001, so 2001, sorry, I have
Space Odyssey.
Mhm.
Space Odyssey, Stanley Kubrick. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And also Tarkovsky. Tarkovsky was another big reference. The kind of shots that it do always very equilibrated. Oh, and also another reference was David Lynch. There is a moment where the camera falls and is unexpected, and that came both informed by Kubrick in the Orange Chocolate. Yeah, where the legend says that they throw a camera so it would look like a person really falling. And then that kind of was in the background. And also that idea of David Lynch of Javier, that it wouldn't be a very informative kind of narration, that it would be more like surreal, like more like being into a dream. There was a moment where we were like, I don't know if this is clear, but let's go more into that direction, and let's not try a direct kind of narrative, but more a surreal or experimental kind of narrative. And in that regard, David Lynch was a reference.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I mean, Ivan covered it mostly from everything there. Like it was a lot of movie title sequences. There we go, that we referenced. So like stuff like a lot of HBO series or studios that do these are like Swarovski, Elastic. Sometimes you get a lot of abstract visuals like from like Man vs. Machine or something like that. These are all just like studios that work in sort of an abstract 3D style or styles that are commonly used in modern day title sequences. And so that was a lot when we were going through looking for references, that was a lot of what we came across were those sorts of sequences done by those studios. And that drove a lot of the look that we were going with. In addition to, Kubrick and Lynch and whatnot, that we wanted to go kind of like a surreal, not necessarily post-apocalyptic, but more so almost kind of looks like a utopia look of some kind rather than dreary and whatnot. It's very almost uplifting. You should want to be there rather than like looking like it's everything's dead or dying. So yeah, that was the visual style.
I want to think dreamlike. That is very oniric in that regard. In any case, I am curious. You were when you saw the film, you were thinking in any kind of references that we haven't mentioned?
No, I mean, I thought it was very fascinating because it kind of reminded me of this like post-apocalyptic type of world, but then like everything was so, the greenery was so luscious and vibrant. It brought this like sense of hope, like in the sense of humans are no longer here, like how we're going to be able or how Earth would evolve in that way and be able to thrive. And in some ways, it reminded me, and I'm not sure if you both had seen this film Flow, that was one of the Oscar nominees, and
Yeah.
it kind of it took me your film took me there too, like in the sense of not only just like the emotion like through dark and light, but also through like the different landscapes that you had demonstrated throughout the airport and also the luscious greenery that it was shown. So it was very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, for sure. And that was actually made in the same program that we used for this. So I made
Oh,
this
wow.
in Blender, and that was made in Blender as well. So,
Oh, cool. Okay. So no wonder more deeper connection there. So
yeah.
that's
So
cool.
coincidental, but yeah.
In
Yeah.
my case, I haven't seen yet the flow, but everyone is talking really correct things about it.
Absolutely. But yeah, would you, I guess, like kind of thinking in those terms, like what were some of like the biggest challenges in bringing this vision to life in just over 2 minutes?
I mean, the fact that this took us 3 years to do 2 minutes of animation should kind of lead you to think that it was challenging. It was a lot more challenging than we thought. Even thinking, oh, this is going to be challenging, it was more challenging than we thought. Just in regards to making sure that we were on the same page as far as what Ivan was thinking when he was designing stuff, and then how I'm putting together the actual 3D scene and the camera movement and the look and the lighting. Ivan had so many great ideas for all of these shots and scenes. And when I was going to interpret him, like he would design everything and then send it to me. And then I was interpreting it in 3D. And sometimes that was like due to the fact that we were mainly operating over like text chat or a Zoom call. There was stuff that was lost in translation, so to say, no pun intended. But it was it there were multiple things where I misinterpreted what he was trying to do through his like storyboards or design. And we'd talk about it a lot, but there would still be stuff where it's like in my mind as that was working, I had like, oh, this is totally what it's going to be. And then I'd show it to him. He goes, oh, this is like not what I had in mind at all. And I was like, really? And then we'd go back and have to like work through stuff again. And it ended up looking great once we finally got on the same page on a couple of things. But it was a challenge to communicate. We had never met each other in person until we went to our first premiere in June of 2024. So it was a challenge in that regard. And then also just the fact that it was taking a very long time, and we were working on this in between client work and whatnot, and I'd pick it up and I'd work really hard on it for a month or two, and then I'd have to set it down for a little bit and then come back to him like, where was I at again? And what was I doing with this? Oh, that's right, I got this. And then I'd look, and sometimes there'd be like, seemed like there was no light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm sure everyone who's made a short film has gone through the same thing, where it's just like, it seems like it's never ending. You're never going to finish it. Like, you just keep putting the time in, and it doesn't seem like it's getting any closer to being done sometimes. But eventually it does get done. It's just sometimes takes like 3 years instead of the 1 year that we thought it was going to take. So yeah, that was definitely the biggest challenge for us, was making sure like everything was aligned on what Ivan was thinking, what I was thinking. We were, as far as design, animation, all that stuff. So yeah.
Definitely, because at the end, it was this having to start like a short film. We didn't put together and say, hey, let's make a 2 minutes and a half short film. It was like, hey, let's make something together. Let's make a short video. Let's make something, and let's discover as we are moving forward what we are creating. And that meant that for most of this project, there wasn't any money because we didn't apply to any kind of grant. We didn't search for production companies. We were two people creating something because we wanted to work together. And that and this is hard because that means that you have to be working, and when you finish working, you remember that you have to deliver you want to send something to Andy, so you spend a little bit more of time, but at the end you have to put things in between. And especially once you arrive to a point and say, oh my God, this looks so good, it's not worth just throwing it to social media and to misuse it in this way. This deserves to be something more and something better and arrive to more people, because the message that it has is relevant enough as much people as we can sort of be seeing it. And then is when we decided that we had to give the extra step and make it like a real short film, and the music and the sound and the voices, and put all that together so it wouldn't go from being a nice social media video that two people did to this is so.
Absolutely, yeah. Because that brings up so many, well, it brings up like another question I had too, but to kind of reflect on what each of you shared, like how this has been, years in the making. And, in some ways you're getting lost in like your own translations of each other by trying to develop some of these concepts, and to be able to develop into, this film and what it was created to be is truly amazing. And thinking about the question that I wanted to ask, like you had mentioned social media, Ivan. And so in terms of like, where attention spans are today, like how people are kind of like evolving or becoming not much more like attentive to that, like how do you feel like in the world of like short film we can differentiate ourselves like that much more from becoming just kind of like a viral social video? I hope that kind of makes sense. I think I got
Yeah.
lost in my own asking of it. So
Yeah,
Yeah, but it's a hard question.
Yeah.
it is a difficult question. I can try to answer, or at least interpret what the question and answer may be. So
Yeah.
let me see. So something we set out with originally in this project was that so much of our world of motion graphics or advertising or commercials is very much, like short attention span, slap the message across somebody's face as quick as possible, get in, get out, and don't really focus, too much on any sort of like narrative and things like that. I mean, there are always exceptions. It's a wide umbrella of things that we work on, but a lot of the time, especially with social media, it is very much that. And so what we wanted to do was get away from this kind of like short, Instagram post or whatever that is like super flashy and interesting and technical, and then just fades away into the abyss, because that's what it is. And so we set out to make something that is a deeper story to tell, has meaning behind it, has narrative elements, even though it's pretty abstract what we end up telling and showing. And that is, I think, something that can get you to stand out. It may not do great on social media because it really is like a slow burn, and it requires you to just give it your full attention. But I think that is how you can kind of stand out from that, as even if you're not making a feature film, but as a short or anything like that, just narrative driven, storytelling,
Mhm.
and attaching deeper meaning, having some concepts that are not just cursory top level, but have, multiple layers to them. And I think that is what, it's not going to get people scrolling through their feed very much, but it will connect with people who take the time to see it. And, you can still make something that is visually appealing and interesting in that way. But I think to resonate with people more, to have people really remember it and get a message, focusing on this deeper storytelling, this narrative is important, and how you are going to stand out.
Mhm.
That's my 2 cents on it, at least.
Yeah.
Now that I have had more time to think about it, I think that also there has to be a moment where the filmmaker has to decide that is for social media or that is for a cinema. We had even the same issue when we were designing the size of the text. It's different when you see it on social media, that the text has to be very on your face, because otherwise you cannot read it in that small size. Or if you decide to do something for a film, where if you do something very big, it should be normally the text that appears in movies is really small, because you have a bigger screen to can enjoy. Also, I think that at the end, especially on this one, that is a part of a surreal and an abstract kind and experimental sort, it's also a documentary. And I remember that sentence that always teachers say, that you cannot arrive to everyone. You can arrive to the 5% of your class or the 10% of your class, those two that are really into what you are explaining. The other people is not going to be putting as much attention to what you are explaining, but should the people in your audience are going to want to know more about it. I mean, at the end of our film, we have QR code that goes to our website, where you can find more information about that topic, because I am aware that most of the people, they are going to see it. They are going to like visually observe. They are going to find it interesting and kind of mysterious. Some people are not like it at all, and some other people are gonna see it and say, "Oh my God, I didn't know about this topic. I want to know more." And for that kind of audience, we have created a way to, hey, you want to know more? We have put together this information. And you were saying it would be great. Can you be a bigger story around that? Can do a proper documentary about it, but it making 2 minutes and a half has taken us 3 years. I don't know how long it could take us to create a sort of a longer story or a longer documentary to kind of cover all the topics that are around this theme.
Certainly. And no, you guys answered the question very beautifully, more than I had shared had or asked it, I should say. But no, that's so great to be able. Thank you guys for both expanding on that, because I feel like that's something like within like the filmmaking industry where people can kind of get lost in the sense of like, here's a content creator, but a filmmaker, I consider them different in that way. And so because as you guys as filmmakers and for everyone who came to DCIFF, like it's such art form and the appreciation, and as you described, like with the QR code at the end, like for information to find out more, like there's continuous ways to do community building that doesn't have to include social media, like to be able to build that certain momentum. And so your film very much really showcases like the beauty of the process, and like it took you guys so long to be able to put this together, but that's like the beauty of it, right? It's just like the in the process, and then also the underlying message of it. And so which kind of reflects but also reminds me to ask, like, for each of you to answer in the sense of like, can you share one of the untranslatable words featured in the film and its significance?
Ivan, you can start as I try to remember the words that were in this project that we worked on 5 years ago.
I have seen it, but I could say one that is normally very used, and I don't think that is gonna be one that is gonna surprise anybody. That is komorebi. I hope that I am saying it correctly from Japanese. That is the light that crosses or the reflect the light that goes through a leaf, and so is the I am explaining it incredibly bad. Andy, once I have to say komorebi, can you?
Yeah, komorebi was gonna. We're definitely butchering these words, by the way. Like, but komorebi, I believe, is the light that filters through the sunlight when it comes to the trees, and you get these nice patterns that when light goes through the trees, because they're like translucent, and also the scattering of the shadows and the light as it goes through all the trees and the leaves and whatnot. So that was one of them. And then petrichor is one that I've actually had we use, which is English, and that's just the smell of rain on like fresh rain on dry ground. And so I think most people enjoy that. And a lot of people have said, "Oh, I'm so glad you put that word in there," because they love that word, and it describes a very interesting sensation of when it first starts raining or right after it is rained, and you get that very fresh, pleasant feeling and kind of smell of like the earth, and it's very floral smelling, I guess. And that was one that was really fun. It was also really fun to illustrate and animate that too. So that was one of my favorites.
And so it is, I think that is something great about all of those words that force us to stop and almost enjoy the moment. And normally in our lifestyles, we don't stop to be looking to, oh, let's see the lights that the leaves are creating in this moment, and the exchange is like a sea. Or let's take a moment to smell if I am smelling the rain or the ground. So that idea that languages are disappearing, until some point we are disappearing that nowness that languages provide us, that ability to be more centered, more in focus with the present instead of being always focusing on what is coming and what is the future, what is the next thing ongoing. So I think that all these words also allow us to be very anchored in the moment instead in the anxiety.
Yeah. No, really well said. And yeah, I mean, yeah, it just made me like think and reflect like how we can have so many ways to describe nature and yet we sometimes don't know the words and sometimes it's even, takes our breath away or it's even speechless in that moment. So for to be able to see like through your film and demonstrate, these untranslatable words, but at the same time, be able to showcase it in a way that's, artistically beautiful and yeah, it just shows, like, such beauty of, like, nature and all the different languages that we all share across the world, so it's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and I think that as we are doing these kind of interviews, even ourselves is like, hey, we are smarter than what we thought. Wow.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Oh, wow, well, this has been such a great conversation. I really appreciate taking the time to chat with you guys today. Was there anything that I may not have asked or that we didn't discuss that you wanted to share?
Um,
And
for me, no. I mean, we hit on everything basically. Great questions. Thanks so much for having us on.
Yes, no, absolutely. My pleasure. And yeah, I'm really glad that we were able to meet as well. And Ivan, I'm glad we got to meet today too. So
yeah,
yeah, and in the ship.
it's a pity that
What was that?
for me it's a pity not being able to assist to the festival. I was from afar watching what was jumping on social media, and I was thinking, oh my god, the festival looks so good, and I am so happy that Andy could assist and be talking about our short film. But definitely, I would love to have assist.
Oh, definitely. Well, I mean, if you guys
Okay.
work on another project or, keep submitting to DCIFF for sure.
Definitely.
We thought in 5-10 years.
True. In another 5 years, yes, we'll
Yeah.
revisit this episode. So
Yeah.
cool. Well, yeah, no, again, thank you so much for the conversation. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Amazing.
I think that they have been great questions that normally we don't answer or talk about, and this that allows you to reflect in what you have created from a perspective that normally you don't focus or you don't think about and realize what other meanings the piece has.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I really like to go deep in those questions too. Like, no matter how long-winded I may ask it, like I do, we do get to the point. So, but
Totally.
this podcast is brought to you by the DCIFF supporters. We could not be here without all of you to be sharing this amazing outlet with filmmakers from around the world. If you are interested in supporting DCIFF, head on over to our website through the link description in the bio of this episode, or you can go right to the website, which is DCIFF-INDIE.org to connect with us and learn more about our Future of Film programs, our festival, and also more educational opportunities in what we do with our high school students, community, and beyond. We look forward to your support.